This is Carla Hinton reporting for the Oklahoman and NewsOK.com. I'm here in the studio with Adam Soltani. He is the Executive Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations, Oklahoma's chapter. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we were going to talk a little bit about the Oklahoma Muslim community in the aftermath of the Paris terrorist attacks. I wanted to ask you specifically, Mr. Soltani, what is the Oklahoma Muslim community thinking now, or what are the thoughts, what are their reactions now? I understand there has been what many would consider a backlash against the Muslim community.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, when it comes to incidents such as this, we immediately condemn such actions. This has actually been a debate within the Muslim community for years. Why do we condemn something that our religion and we as a people don't condone in the first place? But we recognize it's very important for our fellow Oklahomans and our fellow Americans to recognize and to know that we do condemn these actions in the strongest of terms, and we're unequivocal in those condemnations. It does not matter who perpetrates hateful actions. If they do that and they commit violence towards innocent people, and they do so especially in the name of our faith, we will condemn them time and time again. And unfortunately, in the wake of this incident, and with the combination of a lot of the hateful political rhetoric that we've seen in the recent weeks and months from some front runners for the candidacy of President of the United States, we have seen backlash against the Muslim community. We get the usual hate calls, hate emails, sometimes death threats. And I think the scariest thing was 2 nights after what happened in Paris, there was a man in Norman that called 911 and said he was going to go outside and kill or shoot anything that looked to be Muslim because of what happened in France. It's very sad and tragic that the actions of terrorists and extremists that we condemn and we do not have any relationship with will cause people to propagate hatred and animosity towards Muslims here in Oklahoma. But on the flip side, I must mention that there's been a lot of positive messages and messages of support from our fellow Oklahomans that have emailed us and say they stand by our side and they're here to support us and to recognize that we do not have any involvement or relationship with people who propagate these unfortunate actions against innocent civilians.
Okay. You know, something I think is interesting, and I want to make sure we talk specifically about this. Let's talk a little bit about the rhetoric from the Republican candidates. I believe we're talking about Donald Trump and Ben Carson. Because you said that adds an additional element to this anti-Muslim
Well, absolutely. Sentiment. I mean, in Oklahoma, Donald Trump is #1 as far as presidential contenders on the Republican side, and he has been one of the most hateful towards the Muslim community. Now he's saying things such as Muslims must hold ID cards and be part of a national database, and you have to shut down mosques. And you know, he said things like this time and time again. He's asserted that you can't trust Muslims, and they could be hiding things, and I mean things that have no basis and no truth. But people listen to him, and people listen to Ben Carson. And when they make these types of allegations, it makes it much harder for the Muslim community. We have to increase our outreach efforts. We have to increase our educational opportunities. And we have to defend ourselves against these false accusations. So I believe firmly, and we've seen it time and time again, whenever political rhetoric that is hateful increases, hate crimes, vandalism of mosques, and God forbid worse, also increase not only in Oklahoma but across the country.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the what looks to be a backlash against Syrian refugees. I know that you have seemed to have noticed that going on too.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in the wake of what happened in Paris, some of our governors across the country and other political candidates for the presidency, as well as other elected officials, have taken this as an opportunity to use it almost as a political football and to use it to gain some political ground, so to say. And they have accused or said that if we allow Syrian refugees in, we will be allowing ISIS to infiltrate our country. And that is very unfortunate, because the Syrian refugees, they're running away from violence. They're running away from a war zone, from a country that's been in conflict. Half of the original population of Syria, 11 million people, are refugees at this time, and according to the United Nations, they are the largest refugee population in the world. And we owe it to them to embrace them and to welcome them into our country as we have with refugees over the years. There is nothing to substantiate any claims that Syrian refugees would be a threat to our country. According to The Economist, over 750,000 refugees have entered our country since 9/11, and not a single one has been charged with domestic terrorism. So we have very stringent check process to make sure that these people go through security checks and they're vetted and they should be allowed to enter our country. And it's unfortunate that politicians have used this as an opportunity to further demonize a population of people that we should really be opening our arms to. And I take it as not only an attempt to demonize the refugee population, but to further propagate hatred towards Muslims, because the vast majority of those refugees are Muslims and they're just seeking a home. And we have to recognize that they are first and foremost victims of ISIS themselves. And they are running away from that, seeking a place where they can just raise their families and find security and safety.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Soltani, for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. This is Carla Hinton reporting for The Oklahoman and NewsOK.com. For more information, read The Oklahoman.